To live in freedom has an element where we have no concern that we won't be okay in the next moment. In other words, we take each next step fully feeling the okayness that will carry us through. And this is often not how our human conditioning is. Our human conditioning has cautions, has alertness, that puts a little bit of a filter between us and our experience. Now, where does this come from? Where does this sense of caution come from? And I found for me that any regrets I had about the past immediately put a caution into my future. Because if something negative has happened to me in the past, then that means I have to be careful to avoid that again in the future. So to be able to be free and open, stepping confidently into each next moment, I had to look back at every single regret I had and evaluate, did something negative really happen to me? You know, we have this idea of disappointment. But you can't point anywhere in the world and say that's a disappointment. Disappointment, you can't point to something and say, here, this, show me what is disappointment. And you can't show disappointment. It's only a mental conception when we take one idea we have of how things should have been and compare that to what happened. So it's a mental concept that we come up with, the idea of disappointment. And it turned out in every regret, I had only imagined that it was negative. So, for example, I had a breakup that really seemed wrong. It seemed so disappointing, so hurtful. So I looked at that very closely, and I looked at the destiny that he continued to fulfill, and I looked at how my life continued to unfold. You know, because of that breakup, I ended up having the opportunity to experience so many new ways of being in relationship and the subsequent relationships I had. Ways of receiving, ways of yielding, ways of leading. You know, I came into a completely new way of being in relationship, of seeing where I was loved, seeing where I was appreciated. I saw how I was so young in that other relationship. And it was these new people and new ways of being that opened me to being so fully loved and seeing it and recognizing it. So that breakup was essential for me becoming this person, for me having all the experiences that enriched my life and gave me such a broader, expansive way of being in relationship. I'm so grateful that that breakup happened. My imagined idea of how I'd be could never have met and matched with what actually happened. And I went through every single regret. I did not leave one out. For example, there was a degree that I didn't finish. And I looked and saw, I had this imagination of what my life would have been with that degree. But the thing I did that very next year, when I would have continued in that degree, was really impactful. I became a retreat leader based upon the training I got during that year. A retreat leader for communication and for sexuality, and it really opened me up to a new way of sensing into the world and into my experience, and without expectation, but with open wonder, moment by moment by moment. Now, there was so much richness in that. Had I finished that degree, I wouldn't have had the devotion to that training. Now, we imagine how our life could have been some other way, but when we actually look at what we have, it's so rich. So now I step confidently into each new moment, knowing that it isn't my expectation. Then I'm in curiosity and wonder, what will it be? What will be developed in me? What will I discover? And I don't have to withhold. I don't have to guard. I don't have to check, will this be okay? Take any caution, take any filter against saying yes to the next experience. I can fully open to the experience and fully open to the natural responses and know confidently that how life unfolds is benevolent. So it was essential for me to go through every single regret. And some took some time. I'm not saying this is done in a couple hours or even a couple days. But by the end of that process, I knew my life had been a completely benevolent flow, which enabled me to open to a future with no care that I needed to avoid something. Instead, I remained in discovery, and instead, I am confident that each moment coming forth will also be benevolent.